Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian. That's Philip. That's Jay. For a second there, I almost forgot their names. We're from Audio Excellence in Canada. Before I forget, if you like our videos, please subscribe, turn on the notification, and spread the word around. Share the videos. We're trying to help inform the larger public as to how great this passion of ours is. Today we're going to talk about the Magnepan 1.7i's. Normally we would do a video comparison. I guess we still will, but not officially. We've done a previous video, I think, on the the 0.7 and the LRS. Mm-hmm. And those two jerks over there preferred the LRSs, and they're wrong, just so you know. And since I'm the boss here, I can say I'm right. Anyway, so the two of you, who wants to start?
Jay?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Again. Who?
It's a tradition.
I'm a respected elder, so older. I think you should start.
Okay. All right. So the Magnepan 1.7i's, they're obviously a bigger panel.
Oh, wait. Let me give the details first. That would be helpful. And by the way, guys, when you get a chance, I think what you should do is line up the LRS 0.7 and the 1.7, do a shot so people can see the size differences, and maybe have Jerry stand beside it so they can get an idea of how tall the 1.7 is, because in the pictures it doesn't really show. Yeah. Anyway, the 1.7i is $19.95 US dollars or $26.95 Canadian, and that's for the black with black cloth with black sides in wood. Yeah, in wood. And then if you wanted the optional aluminum strips on the side, either the silver or black, it's $2,095 US or $28.30 Canadian. Size-wise, it's 19 inches wide, 65 inches high, and 2 inches deep, rated at 4 ohms, and frequency response is 40 to 24 kilohertz. Okay, Jay, go ahead.
Well, the Magnepan 1.7i's are very special speakers. Well, they're Magnepans. And so we did the video on the Magnepan LRS and the 0.7. This is just a bigger brother of that. And so when I hear the 1.7i's, they firstly need more room than the LRS or the 0.7. And when you put it into a bigger room, you obviously get a bigger sound stage and a sense of depth that is even greater than the LRS and the 0.7i. Now, it is more difficult to drive, at least in my opinion. But when we hooked it up to, I believe it was the H390, was it? When we hooked it up to the H390, it was just phenomenal. It was.
What's with you guys and Hagel? My God.
Because
we actually listen to these things.
Richard doesn't even pay us. Richard, by the way, is the Canadian distributor. Does he distribute Hagel in the States?
No.
He doesn't, right?
No.
So Richard, our friend who watches these videos, hi Richard, doesn't even pay you guys to say nice things about Hagel. You should be dumping on it.
And I don't own any of it. So there's no vested interest in for me.
I mean,
look at Jay. Jay's going, what the hell is these guys talking about?
He does, full disclaimer, Jay does use Hagel products in his other professional life as kind of a reference. But that's born out of experience
which one do you have
garnered
at
the store.
The 120?
I have the new H120 from Hagel and the H190.
Yeah.
But did we ever hook up the H190 to the 1.7i's?
I did.
How was that?
It was phenomenal.
Was it still phenomenal?
Yeah.
So 1.9. So it's
a little
works.
different because the 2 amps sound different.
Yeah.
But
I primarily heard it with the 390, and it was just a phenomenal match. And
okay, I'm going to ban another word going forward.
Phenomenal?
Phenomenal.
Oh my goodness.
So now it's phenomenal
awesome.
and organic.
It was
Right,
awesome.
So let me explain the sound then.
Jerry's laughing.
Let me explain the sound then. It was very organic.
I was just about to use an F-bomb.
Natural. It was very natural.
Yes. It's very natural. Yeah, you're right. So, and like I said, the depth and the sound stage increases. The bass region also, in my opinion, goes is more and warmer sounding than the 0.7i's. It is very, very transparent, just like the 0.7i's and the LRS. And in my opinion, if you have the room, the 1.7i's are a choice. Now, I say this because I had a client that came in here after watching the rave reviews and recommendation of the LRS, and he had the budget for the 1.7i. In fact, he had a huge space. And when I asked him, what's the size of the room you're putting this in, and he told me like it's a theater room, and he wants to listen to music once in a while, and he's happy with the idea that you can move the panels easily because they're light and they're small. So he will move it to the side, right, and then he'll watch a movie, and then when he's listening to music, he'll put it back, and then listen to the LRS. But then the room is humongous. According to him, was humongous. I don't remember the exact dimensions, but when he mentioned it, I was like, "That's not." Well,
what is a seat? I mean, it's a theater room, so how many people? 10, 15, something like that.
Probably just like a sofa, but not the theater room that you're thinking about, which is
no, like we have lots of clients with like very elaborate theater rooms.
No, I'm not talking about
stadium seating.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. I'm not talking about those, but more standard, right? Anyways, he was telling me that he was going to put that in this room, and I said, well, you probably need to get like the 3.7i. It was that big of a room. But he's considering the 1.7i because he just thinks the 3.7i is way too big, and his idea was that he can move it by himself.
But you can do that with.
Well, you have to push it, right? You can't just like lift it and with 3.7i's.
That's what we do.
Well, 3.7i's.
Yeah. Don't you remember we had them here?
I'm not that strong.
They are a little bit bigger, but they're still relatively flat.
Yeah. But he's an older gentleman. So anyways, he wanted
casters.
Yeah. He wanted he was okay with the size of the 1.7i. And so he decided to go that route, and he's considering it right now as we speak. But the thing is, when people see rave reviews, they bypass all the caveats of, for example, the LRS won't work in a bigger room. We've tested this in the very beginning, and remember how I was very...
Well, it wouldn't work with this little tiny amp that we're probably using with it.
Well, what tiny amp were we using it with?
Well, if you're using one of the basic Hagels, it's probably not enough.
It'll also bottom out as well. Once you play some bass, the
LRS
panel...
or the 1.7i?
No, LRS or the 0.7, because it's a smaller panel, so...
Yeah. So anyways, the LRS in a bigger room, initially I was very disappointed. The 1.7i, I've never put it into in a smaller space, but just off the fact that the 0.7i in the front room was a little bit too much, at least to me, compared to the LRS in terms of the bass. It was a little bit bloaty with the 0.7i in the front small room. So the 1.7i needs a lot more breathing room than the 0.7i. So therefore, it needs to be in a bigger space. And so if you have the room, there's no doubt, there's no, should I go for the LRS or the 1.7i? At least to me, it's 100% 1.7i. It's overall a better speaker. And, especially given that you have the space, you shouldn't be thinking, since the LRS is so good, according to all these reviews, I should put it in a bigger room. It does not work in a bigger space. The bigger panels work better in a bigger space. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
In terms of the sound signature and stuff, it's basically what we talk about, the Magnepan sound, the LRS, the 0.7i, beautiful mid-range, transparency, all that stuff, organic stuff that we always talk about. So you can go watch the LRS.
$2.
You can go watch the LRS
Can I have some money too?
0.7i video for the reference in the sound quality.
Okay. Villet?
Wow, how am I going to top that?
Well, I didn't
Just say ditto.
Well, I don't want to talk about. I didn't
Ditto.
talk about much of the sound because, I only talked about the circumstances because we've talked about the 0.7i, the LRS, the sound signature. To me, it's just like the Wilsons, right? We have a Wilson sound. It goes up from there. It doesn't, it doesn't change drastically. And that's something that drives me crazy with some companies, right? It's like you have a speaker, and then you look at this top of the, one step up, and you're like, I want that. Maybe it's a better version of this. No, it's a totally different speaker.
Yeah, they don't have a family sound, or it changes so much.
Yeah. I often had that issue, when I was beginning my journey, right? You would recommend me something, like a brand, and I would look at it and I'll be like, okay, this is $1,000, and the next model is $1,500, and it looks better. So I go, okay, I heard this, I must like the better one. And I buy the better one. It's like a totally different sound. It's like this one's warm, that one's clinical.
Well, it's like KEF. KEF uses all the Unique drivers, but the LS50 is kind of special. Way the cabinet's constructed, and the fact that it doesn't have really straight edges. But if you compare that to an R series, which is much more expensive, it has some similarities, but in essence, it's quite a different sounding speaker.
Well, see, with KEF, like at least they have a house sound. And like
sort of,
there's a similarity to it. I'm talking about like the opposite side of the spectrum, like warm versus clinical, and it's opposite of what I wanted. That drives me crazy. But anyways, we're deviating away from the topic very rapidly now. But overall, it's the same sound signature. It just goes up, and especially if you have the room, you should go up in the line. Is what my opinion is.
Okay.
Anyways, go ahead.
That's what you get when you let him go first.
Well, if I had gone first, you wouldn't have anything else to say.
That's his problem.
But I have lots to say.
Okay, that's good. Okay, let's go.
Just remember, the video can only last so long before the camera shuts off.
And then anyways, who's going to watch us for more than 20 minutes?
Yeah.
So let me give you the abridged version, all the things that you didn't add. There's an essential difference between the 1.7i and the other two smaller versions, and that is out of the box, the configuration, the setup is different in that the LRS and the 0.7s come with those angled feet which tilt the speaker back for greater dispersion in your setup, and it's actually kind of less accurate. And in fact, the LRS has these little tabs that you can use to
both speakers have the little tabs.
They have the little tab that you can
tilt the speakers back and straight.
Or straighter. And we often recommend that if you can prop it up even so it's more vertical, it will improve the performance. And in fact, the 0.7 comes with an oval kit with straight connection so that it actually sits vertical, completely truly vertical, just like the 1.7.
Yeah, you can show that in the picture later.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. So when you use the panels in the straight vertical configuration, it actually focuses much better, which is one of the reasons why the 1.7 seems to be, a more complete speaker in basically all the ways that we like, which is, it's very musical, and it becomes even a much more intimate experience when it's properly set up.
Yeah.
And we have used the front room to sell 1.7s, and people have loved it, and the bass is pretty fabulous in that little tiny room. But obviously when, and I heard Adrian set up the 1.7s correctly in our theater room, which was about, your preference was 5 feet?
Yeah, I was just checking to see what the measurements were like, if they were 5 or 6 or 7 feet. And I was too lazy to do it myself, so I said to the guys, here, go move it.
So I started with 6 feet with a little bit of toe in with the tweeter element on the outside to give you the biggest sound stage and the greatest depth. And yeah, all those things. All the things you like about the LRS and the 0.7s, you just get more of that in the 1.7. And in some ways, I actually prefer it to the 3.7 because the 1.7 is, 30% of the price, 35% of the price, something like that. Well, the 3.7 is 8,000 Canadian.
Versus roughly 3.
Yeah, well, so my math is not good this morning, but it's a fraction of the price. My experience with the 1.7 is that I never expected it to do very much, and I always thought, well, I have a Class D amp, and I'll try it with this, and I brought in this Class D amp that I have, and it was pretty good. And I thought, wow, that's not a bad combination. And then I hooked up a Macintosh MC452, and I was really, really pleasantly surprised at how great it was in terms of the soundstage depth and the bottom end extension. So what's really, really, really good about a Magnepan when it works properly, and I think a 1.7 with the right amplification does work properly. It has great extension top and bottom. It has complete coherency.
Yep.
The speed is evenly matched amongst all the elements. So even though there are 3 distinct areas on that, there's a tweeter element, there's a mid-range element, and there's a big bass element, they're all the same speed, which is pretty amazing. So that speaker, you're sitting there, and essentially it always disappears. It totally disappears. I mean, let's not talk about what it doesn't do. Let's talk about what it does do. So you're sitting there. It's very natural sounding. There's a great, gigantic sound stage, and you know, you're just listening to music. You stop listening to the panel. With the Hagel H390 and the 190.
I think I'm going to get rid of Hagel just so we don't have to keep talking about it.
What I noticed mostly is, so this panel, one of the things that it does is that it really allows you to hear how bad your equipment is in a way, because obviously if there's shortcomings in your amplification, in your electronics, you're going to hear it. More so than, you know, most other speakers in that price range, because it's truly an audiophile speaker. It's so revealing. The timing is so exact. If there's any kind of like mismatch, then you're going to hear it right away. So every time I put on a better amplifier, the speaker got better. So that's why we often recommend amplification that is 2 to 3 times the price of the panel. Even for 1.7i, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. So the kind of things I was hearing. And the reason I like Hagel, with the 1.7i, it seemed to match in the bottom end exactly, so that when you played like one of my favorite tracks, Kiss in Blue by Yellow, it's an electronic track, but the way they've recorded it, there's a lot of space around the different instruments, and the bass has a lot of texture. And the one thing you'll notice with that combination of the 1.7i and either the 190 or the 390 from Hagel is that that bass has texture, and you can hear it all the way plumbing right down to 40 hertz, and there's all this room around it. It actually exists within that sound space, and you know, it doesn't, it's not one note. It just has this kind of like complexity that you often don't hear. A lot of speakers that have a ported design can sound a bit, well, it has volume, but it doesn't have, well, but that's, what am I, I have no
bass
idea.
delineation?
Yeah, there's a kind of, so with the panel, you can hear 40 hertz, you can hear 50 hertz, you can hear 60 hertz. So if the note has that kind of roundness and range, you're going to hear all of that in all its various bits. And that's what's really, you know, that's one of the reasons why I love that combination so much. But of course, the speaker is capable of doing that. And a lot of people don't realize it. So they often connect the subwoofer to it. They don't hear the panel at its greatest.
Speaking of that, so let me ask you guys. So one of the ongoing questions we get a lot from our Magnepan videos is, can I add a subwoofer? And so I want to throw it out to you guys. What do you think?
Well, we're not, no, we can't stop you. So
besides that,
sure, if the subwoofer is fast enough.
Yeah. But
it's never going to be an exact match.
Perfectly integrated, yeah. I mean, it can come pretty close.
Jay?
Well, you can't, like you said, we can't stop them.
We can't stop them, no.
Well, would you?
Personally, most of the time, unless I'm watching movies or anything like that, I just don't see, you know, the lack of bass with the Magnepans that people talk about. It lacks the deep bass, but the truth be told, most speakers, you know, don't do that deep bass, especially in that price range, for sure. So I really don't get what people talk about when they say lack of bass. It's to me a very adequate amount of bass. So I never really needed to add a subwoofer unless you want that really, really deep extension, which you could achieve. But again, like Philip said, you need a fast enough sub, and it's never going to be 100% blended. And I told clients that some clients, right, they just don't hear it, and that's okay. They perfectly they're perfectly happy with the subwoofer setup. Like they don't hear delay, they don't hear any type of mismatch there, and they think it's perfect, right? And so like in our demo room when we hook up the subwoofer to the Magnepans, for example, I hear it, but the clients don't, and that's perfectly okay. I'm not saying that my hearing is better than theirs or anything like that. Some people are less sensitive, just like how you're more sensitive to certain things like phase and stuff like that. We all differ in sensitivity of certain things. For me, one of the things is the bass, the tempo, and all that stuff. So I hear it right away, whereas some of the clients just don't, and they enjoy the music without that bothering them. It bothers me a lot. So I prefer it 100% without the subwoofer. And so, yeah.
My understanding is that 80% of Magnepan users use a subwoofer. But at the same time, almost every Magnepan sale that I've been, able to be a part of, in terms of making that kind of recommendation, usually they do not leave with a subwoofer. So they must be adding it after the fact. And when I do the demo, I usually turn it down. So my rule of thumb is, with the Magnepan especially, is that I get it to a point where you hear it, and of course I back it off a little bit. Most clients prefer to maybe turn it up a bit, but I like to back it off a bit. And usually I like it better without the subwoofer. So one of the things is, the one thing is, like you're talking about impact, deep extension. You'll find that what the Magnepan does is it actually has deep extension down to what its rating is. So the 1.7i does 40 hertz. But what's going on is that it doesn't move air. So you have real bass notes coming out, but there isn't that corresponding push or that pressurization that you get with dynamic speakers, where you feel the impact against your chest. The Magnepan won't do that, but it actually has that note right down to 40 hertz. If it's in the music, it's there. So it's actually more true, and there's no exaggeration, but it's quite different from a dynamic speaker that has this kind of slam.
Yeah. Well, I would still say the Magnepans has slam. I'm just saying that's just like you said, the pressurization in the lower region.
Well, if you put your hand in front of it, and you're waiting to feel air moving against your hand.
But no one's listening like that. But anyways.
But if you do it with a dynamic speaker, you can feel that even with something.
Yeah, I understand.
Near field listening.
Yeah, I agree. Anything you wanted to add?
No, just a couple of quick things to note, because guys have covered everything. First of all, as much as the guys have gone into a lot of detail about setup and room and so on, one thing that you may want to also check out is the FAQ section on Magnepan's website, because in many cases, Magnepan has completely disagreed with what we have just said, or at least they've said. You do want to check that out and see what the manufacturer talks about, for example, power and room. Note also that with a planar speaker, the dispersion angle is very different than a typical dynamic speaker. So it produces sound primarily from front and back. It produces very little to the sides and very little vertically. And so ironically enough, even though the speakers can look like they're big, they actually work better in a small room because you can put them closer to the sidewall, since they don't splash the sound to the side very much. And if you have a low ceiling, like for example, if you live in downtown Toronto in one of the older homes where the ceiling's like 6 feet tall, since they splash so little vertically, it actually works better. And by the way, that's part of the reason why, sorry, my phones are going crazy. Part of the reason why the LRS and the 0.7 cants back is so that it has more vertical dispersion because the panels aren't very tall. So this way, when you're standing up, you don't lose so much high frequency, whereas the 1.7 is relatively tall. You don't need to cant it back. And Philip was right about mentioning that. I first discovered that if you're using a panel and you had it vertical, for some reason the sound was just more convincing, and that was back when I was playing with Martin Logans and with Apogees, and so all my speakers at the time were canted vertically or even slightly forward. So that's a very good tip, Philip. Then the other thing I guess I would also very quickly point out is, for my taste, I do like the better tubes with Magnepan, just because it gives a slight warmth to the panel, and for my listening habits these days, that just suits me very, very well. I guess that's it. Any last words? Mm-hmm. No? We've covered everything. All right. Well, so that's our video for this week. If you like it, please subscribe and turn on the notification, and please share the videos. If you have any questions or comments, put them below, and we'll see you again sometime. Take care. Bye-bye.